Have you ever known exactly what you wanted to do, but didn't do it? You wanted to move to that dream location, start that business idea that lit you up, pivot your career, go back to school, ask someone out, or end a relationship you knew wouldn't support the life you're trying to build. You felt it. It felt aligned. It felt so true. You could feel it with your whole being, but still you hesitated. Maybe you waited too long. Heck, maybe you're still waiting for more time, more money, when you lose the weight or get more training, when circumstances are better, the stars aligned, or just later. And it's not because you don't understand the steps. It's not because you lack the knowledge, the talent, or the skill. No, it's not because you aren't capable, but because you're kind of scared, even if you don't know why. Something in you doesn't fully trust the risk involved in moving forward. So you overthink it. Maybe you research a little more. Maybe you told yourself, that's great for someone else, but I couldn't do that. Maybe you saw people doing it and quietly decided, that's just not me. I could never. And then you called it realism. But what if I told you that the confidence you see in other people making those moves, it isn't what you think it is? What if confidence isn't believing you'll get it right, but believing you can recover if you don't? What if it's not certainty in the outcome, but trust in your ability to orient, to adapt, to continue? Trust in your ability to figure it out. Today we're talking about the personal power of confidence, not as a personality trait, not as bravado, not as hype, okay? True confidence, it isn't loud. It's a nervous system capacity to move through the world while figuring it out, without falling short, feeling like an existential threat to your sense of self. And we're going to look at how your attachment style shaped it.
You're listening to The Science and Spirit of Happy, a podcast unpacking the sustainable dreams theory. This revolutionary work is grounded in a simple truth, that your dream is your destiny, and your happiness is just a symbol of your purpose unfolding.
Let's clear something up right away, okay? Confidence is not certainty. It's not charisma. It's not being the loudest person in the room. It's not fearlessness. It's not bombastic self-assurance. Confidence comes from spirit. Now, if you're new here, hello, I'm Laurelie Lothbrook. I'm an author and happiness researcher. People call me the healing meets high performance prof. I spent years studying in the East, immersed in Eastern philosophy and healing traditions, became a master healer, and then turned towards Western science and the data on fulfillment. I came from a background very, very far from ideal, and I couldn't find a way to dramatically transform my reality, no matter how hard I looked. Because no one who was offering advice was teaching a way to actually transform yourself. And that's what it takes. If you want to rise above coping and actually become the better version of yourself and really live the dream life you're imagining, you have to totally transform who you are inside first. It's totally possible. It's even plausible with the right tools. It takes a bit of courage, which is what we're discussing today in the personal power of confidence. But what I discovered is that transformation is anything but random. Like everything that happens naturally, it also follows a structure. The very few people who have managed to do it, they do so intuitively. They have the courage, they commit, and they intuit the rest. So it's difficult for them to explain how they did it, They'll talk about the courage or the commitment, but the structure, that eludes words, okay? It eludes explanation. So I wanted something more straightforward. I wanted the structure. Luckily, I have a talent for pattern recognition and a drive to stay with a problem long enough to crack the code, and I figured it out. For me, for my own development, then for academia, and finally for the public. It took me decades, but I built a proprietary theory and then a methodology. It moves step by step through the 8 personal powers necessary for your dream to become the most natural outcome. Each one develops your inner capacity to become the kind of person for whom success is inevitable. In this framework, the personal power of confidence, which we're talking about today, lives in what I call the SoulSet District. SoulSet governs direction, meaning, orientation, your inner sense of not just where you're going, but why. Confidence is the personal power that makes that inner direction usable. It's your spirit made operational. It's the capacity to feel a pull towards something because it carries meaning for you, because it aligns with your gifts, your purpose, your destiny. And then to move toward it with intention. Not because you'll gain leverage, not because you'll get applause, not because someone is pushing you forward, and certainly not because you have a guarantee, but because you trust yourself enough to navigate whatever happens next. And you trust your vision enough to know that it isn't leading you astray. That's coherence. Confidence has been wildly misrepresented to us. We've confused it with performance. True confidence is not believing I won't fail. It's believing if I do, I'll adjust. I'll recover. My sense of self won't collapse. That level of confidence is existential. And this is where people get it wrong. They think they lack belief in their ability, but often they don't. They lack belief in their recoverability. They don't trust that they can be wrong and still be on the right track. They don't trust that they can try and fail and still be loved, still be worthy, still belong. They don't have the embodied experience of being down and still safe, of taking up space in their true shape and not being rejected for it. So risk doesn't just feel uncomfortable. It feels existentially threatening. And that is attachment-based parenting. I'm not saying this means you have a disordered or insecure attachment style necessarily. I'm saying your attachment security is most likely not optimal. When early attachment doesn't fully secure your sense of belonging, missteps can feel catastrophic. So instead of moving, you wait. Instead of acting, you prepare. Instead of choosing, you seek reassurance. As a business owner, I have to scan for this constantly when hiring. I can hire someone extraordinarily capable, intelligent, skilled, strategic, and they will spend hours building spreadsheets we'll never use, preparing to perform, polishing, refining, and never actually moving. This isn't incompetence. It's a nervous system equating necessary risk with imminent threat. A confident person still feels risk, but they don't experience it as existential. The threat does not outweigh the potential reward. Confidence is not the absence of feeling the risk, just like courage isn't the absence of fear. It's a reprioritization. Risk and opportunity usually go hand in hand, and failure is often the tuition paid to growth. Do you know gifted kids are more likely to have trouble in grade school and more likely to drop out of high school? Yeah. Growth doesn't come from things you do easily. It comes from being pushed outside the zone of I can easily do this and into the zone of I'm likely going to fall short unless I try hard, or I'm going to have to figure this out as I go. And although falling short doesn't feel good to anyone, never trying feels so much worse. To the person with well-developed confidence, the reward of giving it a shot is worth it enough. I'm going to show my Canadianness right now, but hockey legend Wayne Gretzky made this quote so famous, it's now a hockey catechism. At the height of his career, he said in an interview, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." Years later, he admitted the quote was actually his father's. In fact, it was a kind of theme for him growing up. Take the shot. Never mind being afraid you'll fail, because if you don't try, you absolutely will. That's the kind of parenting that lets a legend blossom. The confident person doesn't fear less. Their system just knows it will survive the outcome. So it's at least worth trying. The person with a highly developed personal power of confidence has the faith that they'll figure out whatever they need to figure out along the way in order to get to their goal. Confidence is not the total absence of feeling risk or threat. That's abnormal psychology. The personal power of confidence is the felt sense that you're allowed to move. You're allowed to experiment. You're allowed to get it wrong. You're allowed to evolve publicly. You're allowed to be seen exactly where you are, because your worth is not on trial. Confidence is inspired direction without anxious urgency. It's knowing ownership of the process comes in stages and not needing the entire future mapped out before you begin. It's being willing to move into discomfort because not moving would be self-abandonment, and that would cost more internally. When confidence is intact, decisions land. You don't spin. You don't crowdsource your identity when something matters to you. You don't need unanimous agreement to move. When bystanders throw stones at you from the stands, when you're in the ring, you brush it off for what it is. A perspective that is so different from where you want to be that it's unworthy of your time. You know you have your own approval, and you feel its weight. Ideally, you also have people around you who reflect that back to you. If you don't, that's also information, because that's part of the personal power of confidence. Not that the support necessarily gives you the confidence, but confidence gives you the support. Brené Brown's research showed that people who have belonging believe they are worthy of belonging. That was their only differentiator. Confidence is part of that belief. And because we're discussing your attachment style in relation to the personal power of confidence today, this is doubly vital. Because consistent relational support is part of secure attachment. Confidence doesn't require you to be absolutely sure of what comes next. It requires you to know what is yours to do. And then you begin. Not always dramatically, and certainly not recklessly. It's not acting impulsively, but cleanly, aligned, coherently. That clear movement is not a personality characteristic. It's a developed soul set. It's what I call high intuitive IQ. It's intuitive alignment your body and mind trust enough to act upon. And if this isn't your experience, it doesn't mean you suck. It doesn't mean you lack courage. It means something shaped how you interpret your inner signal. And that shape almost always begins in childhood attachment. So let's talk about where confidence actually comes from. Okay, it's not in adulthood for most people. It's not in high school. It's not when you got your first promotion. It's much, much earlier. Dr. Sue Gerhardt, a British psychotherapist and neuroscientific researcher, wrote extensively about how early attachment literally shapes the developing brain. In her book, Why Love Matters, she explains that the infant's brain's regulatory systems are not fully organized at birth. They develop in relationship. The stress system, the reward system, the circuits responsible for impulse control, emotional regulation, and resilience. They wire up through attuned caregiving. A baby is born with a natural drive to explore, to reach, to move, to grow, to orient toward novelty. Exploration is not taught, it's biological. But exploration only continues if it feels safe. Research on attachment shows this. When a baby crawls away, looks back, sees a calm, available caregiver, the nervous system receives two signals at once. I can move outward and I can return. That return is everything. Because every attempt at exploration creates a small stress response, okay? Novelty increases cortisol. Uncertainty activates the stress system. In secure attachment, the caregiver helps regulate that stress. But this starts happening long before crawling even begins. From birth, the baby cries, the caregiver soothes. Cortisol rises and then it falls, over and over. That fall matters more than the rise. It's that downregulation that wires the brain for recoverability. Remember what I said about confidence being less about ability and more about recoverability? Exactly. So Gerhardt shows that early attachment patterns influence the development of the right prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for regulating emotion and integrating experience. If stress is consistently met with calm repair, the stress system becomes balanced, regulated. If distress is met with unpredictability, dismissal, or anxiety, the stress system becomes sensitized. Okay, now we're not just talking about normal stress, we're talking about developing a threat detection bias. The brain starts scanning more aggressively for potential loss of connection. Risk becomes flagged as danger more quickly. Not because the child is any different than the confident child, because their cortisol response doesn't downregulate smoothly. Because their brain literally developed differently due to their environment. And this is where we start to see hyperactivation, anxiety, versus shutdown, avoidance. Some children become hyperactivated, they over-monitor, they over-prepare, they seek reassurance constantly, they scan for approval before moving, they become anxious. Others lean towards shutdown. They stop reaching, they mute desire, they avoid trying at all. They become depressed or avoidant. Both are adaptations to the same core problem. They weren't mirrored and responded to appropriately. Now, let's put this in perspective here, because this research was hard to swallow for me when I first looked at it. This doesn't mean you're doomed, okay? It just means you have deeper work to do to get to your dream reality than writing a to-do list and getting on it. But let's also face the facts, okay? Telling parents to let babies cry it out, not picking them up for fear of quote unquote spoiling them, and all manner of callous advice was relayed by experts for at least a couple generations. Okay, you don't have to have bad parents to have some attachment-based issues with the personal power of confidence. You don't need totally overwhelmed parents who made you manage their moods or overrode your distress signals, causing you to shut down, or who created an environment where acceptance was hyper-conditional to do damage to SoulSet and to confidence. Okay, it's pretty easy for parents to have imprinted the message on you very early. Exploration doesn't feel reliably safe. Exploration includes expressing your needs. As a baby, that's pretty much all you can do. So if instead of the natural trajectory, explore, stress, repair, return to baseline, explore again, the loop got disrupted, explore, stress, no repair, or explore, stress, overreaction, or explore, stress, withdrawal, the body adjusts. The brain adjusts. It learns to hesitate, to fear loss of balance, loss of connection, inner chaos. Now bring this forward into adulthood. When you consider moving cities, quitting your job, launching the business, ending the relationship, your body isn't just evaluating logistics. It's evaluating, what happens if I get this wrong? Will I recover? Will I still belong? If your early nervous system learned smooth repair, risk feels activating but manageable. If it didn't, risk feels existential. Not dramatic, existential. Because the stress circuitry was not only shaped to anticipate dysregulation, to light up quickly when fear arises, but never fully learned how to settle itself again either. It's a double whammy. That's the developmental damage. So when I say confidence is the belief in recoverability, this isn't a metaphor, okay? It's developmental neuroscience. Confidence develops when a child's internal signals are mirrored, trusted, and allowed, and when rupture is followed by repair. Attachment teaches one of two core messages. My inner sense is valid, and even if I get it wrong, I will be brought back. Or I need external confirmation before I can move, because missteps might cost me connection. If attachment taught you to doubt yourself, confidence becomes fractured. Not gone, fractured. You can still have strong intuition. You can still have vision. You can still know what you want. But there will be interference between the signal and the action. You'll feel the pull, and then cortisol spikes. You'll know what's yours, and then threat detection overrides it. You'll feel ready, and then you'll either hyperactivate or shut down. That gap between knowing and moving, that's attachment. It's stress circuitry. That's early patterning. It's confidence or intuitive IQ. And if you feel yourself stalling or getting distracted, it's not lack of ambition. It's not lack of intelligence. It's not lack of courage. It's what I call an intuitive IQ dent that turned into a deficit. A nervous system that learned, if I move and it goes wrong, I might not be brought back. Your humanity will always choose connection over abandonment, unless it learned early on that both can coexist, that you can try and still be loved, fail and still belong, miss and still be safe. That is secure attachment, and that is the soil confidence grows in. So let's talk about what all of this actually feels like in your life, okay? Because most people don't walk around thinking, wow, I am profoundly underconfident, okay? Their sense of themselves is more like, my level of self-belief is accurate. Given who I am and what's happened, I shouldn't be that confident. They see the failed launch, the job they didn't get, the relationship that fell apart, the times they acted like a jerk to themselves or other people, and the messed up opportunities. And they read those as proof that their low self-assurance is accurate. It's realistic. But if you zoom out in developmental time, it's almost always the other way around. The lack of the personal power of confidence came first, okay? Long before the high school marks, okay? Or whether you made the team, or your popularity, or your career trajectory. Your nervous system had already learned reaching is risky. Taking up space is a potential liability. My inner drive might cost me if I go with it. The adult, quote unquote, evidence just got organized around that pre-existing shape. In this season, I've been talking about shape like this, okay? Through attachment, through your earliest experiences, you are shaped. The shape you're molded into fits into a very specific kind of life, okay? Exactly like the way a key fits in a lock. That shape determines what feels possible for you, what feels like too much, how you move through the world, where you feel like it's prudent to stall, what kind of rooms you end up in, what kind of relationships you cultivate and tolerate. If nothing interfered, your natural shape would be curious, reaching, expressive, willing to try, fail, try again, like a baby, okay? Fall down 7 times, stand up 8. But life does interfere. When your natural impulses are shamed, ignored, overridden, mocked, or simply not mirrored back to you, that's damage. Call it a dent. One moment, your system can absolutely repair that. Okay, we're built resilient. Self-healing is actually quite natural and happens without trying, like a cut on your skin. Given space, given time, we heal. But when the same kind of interruption happens again and again, especially early, and especially from the people you love and depend on the most, that dent becomes self-maintaining. Your nervous system, your neurology, your instinct, your beliefs uphold the pressure that created that dent. And that's what I call a deficit. This is what Sue Gerhardt was getting at when she explained the lifelong consequences to the adult brain when caregiving in infancy isn't attuned. In the SoulSet District, where confidence lives, those long-standing dents show up as what I call an intuitive IQ deficit, or IIQD. Your inner compass is still there, okay? Energy and soul can't actually be damaged, but your nervous system has been trained to distrust it. Your neurology reinforces the same patterning it was shown. It keeps the dent dented. So let's name this. One of the biggest confidence dents I see, and this is especially in high capacity people, is what I call disillusionment despite direction. That's when you know exactly what you want. You're not confused. You're not lost. You're not directionless. Okay, you're disillusioned. You're disillusioned by your own dream. It looks like this. You know the city you want to live in. You know the kind of work that lights you up. You know the relationship that isn't it. You know the project that has your name on it. Direction is not the issue, okay? You can journal about it, vision board about it, talk about it in therapy, buy a manifestation course trying to make it happen some other way. You can explain it beautifully to someone else. But when it comes to going for a full throttle, it feels off. And in the next episode, I'm going to break down exactly what I mean by that and how that dent forms, how attachment shapes it, why it creates paralysis in capable people, or a hamster wheel that looks like success but feels like dread, and how to actually heal it. Because until you understand this dent, you will keep mistaking hesitation for realism. And that is costing you more than you realize. I'll see you in part 2.